Nick Bublitz, and I'm the producer in residence here at Orlando Shakes. And welcome to our fifth installment of Meet the Playwright, a weekly spotlight series on each playwright showcased in PlayFest 2020. This year is a whole new experience as PlayFest makes the switch to a virtual platform over the span of 6 weeks, with a live reading occurring every week from October 3rd to November 7th. This week, I am joined by Vincent Delaney, who is the fifth playwright showcased in our virtual New Play Festival with his play, The Wheelwoman. But before we get to that, a big thank you to our presenting sponsors. For the second year, the Basil Keeney family joined City Beverages in presenting PlayFest 2020. What's so special about PlayFest is that these new plays are still in development. So during our rehearsal process, playwrights are able to hear their words aloud and actually continue adding to their work, making cuts, adding scenes, and continuing to grow and explore their play. And you, as an audience member, get to be a part of this process. After each reading, there'll be a live Q&A with the playwright and director, where the audience can ask questions and provide feedback about the play directly to the playwright as they continue on their creative journey. And throughout this, we'd love to feature your questions, so be sure you leave some questions for Vince in the comments. Vincent's play is The Wheelwoman, which is a historical comedy that tells the true story of Annie Londonderry, an early feminist icon who pushes every boundary to achieve her goal of biking solo around the world, setting off a firestorm in the women's movement in the late 1800s. Hi, Vincent. How are you?
Hey, great to see you. That was a good intro. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been 5 of them so far, so I'm getting used to it.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, welcome to PlayFest. How are you, Vincent?
I'm so glad to be able to be doing theater under these circumstances. It's just, it's so great. So great to be, in the room with actors, with a director, with a dramaturg. It's a really special experience right now.
In the Zoom room,
the Zoom room, yeah.
In the Zoom room. Well, so Vincent, tell me a little bit about yourself. You are a PlayFest alumni. You've been here before. Maybe give me a little bit about information to me about that, and talk about a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was thinking about that question. I realized I'm a 20-year veteran. I went to the Playwright Center in Minneapolis in 2001 is where I kind of got started. And that's 19 years ago. So I guess I'm coming up on 20 years as a playwright. Yes, I did PlayFest a few years back. It's been about maybe 8-9 years or so. Fantastic experience working on another historical play, also a historical comedy, strangely enough. Really great experience there. So I guess that's me in a nutshell.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about the creative process for The Wheelwoman. What has that been like?
I really just discovered Annie Londonderry a year ago, and it was just at random. And I feel like I was just randomly looking through books on that time period, the Gilded Age, and I discovered this woman that I'd never heard of who'd done this incredible thing, had this amazing adventure, and was briefly massively famous. I mean, she was world famous for several years, was completely involved in the early women's movement, became a feminist icon at a time when there really weren't that many of them. And then before you knew it, she was kind of forgotten. And I thought, wow, I cannot believe no one has written this story. And so the first thing I did, actually, to be honest with you, the first thing I did is I went to see, has anybody written this play? I could not believe that nobody had written this play, and nobody had really written this play. So, the last year has really just been obsession with this story, discovering it, finding it. Yeah,
that's where it's got to be. You gotta be obsessed to write something, right? So I guess then you told me a little bit about how the process is. I guess tell me a little bit about the world of the play. You mentioned Annie, but without giving any spoilers, let's talk a little bit about the who, the what, and the where of everything.
So the Gilded Age, the 1890s, a time not that different from today. Massive inequality in wealth, massive inequality in education. Immigration is happening, racism is happening. It's and technology. Technology is just rapidly taking over and changing everything. And just a very turbulent time culturally and politically, but also a time of sort of amazing youth and exploration. And into the midst of this, just randomly comes this new thing called the safety bicycle. Everyone has that image of the 19th century bicycle with a giant front wheel. Very dangerous. You really can't go very far on those things. You would flip over the front of it. And just 10 years before our story, somebody comes up with the bicycle that we know today, 2 equal-sized wheels. And that seems like such a trivial thing, but it opened up a universe. It just opened up this whole idea of exploration, particularly for women. All of a sudden, a woman could get on that bicycle and go away and leave the husband, leave the family, go somewhere where no one really knew where she was. And it just took off, and it became synonymous with liberation, with freedom. And that led to a revolution in fashion. You obviously could not wear the corset and the big hoop skirt if you're on a bicycle. So lo and behold, we had to wear bloomers, and bloomers were a radical new idea. And Annie Londonderry, not Barry, was kind of caught in the midst of this. That's the world. That's sort of the world of the story.
Perfect. And so let's talk in size of the cast. We have how many actors in this?
We're doing it, we have about 25 characters.
Okay.
5 actors, 5 women. 5 women are doing everything. So one amazingly talented young woman is playing Annie, and then 4 amazingly talented women are playing everybody else. And it's got that, the play 39 Steps, where there's rapid sort of character changes. That's what's going on in this story.
So it's a madcap, zany dash to put on a hat and then take it off and then come back on. And
so there's a lot of that, particularly in the first act. And after all, it is an adventure going around the world on a bicycle. But it is also an inner journey for Annie. And it's also sort of a journey of self-discovery. And my hope, and this is what we're working on right now, is that there will be a heat and a passion about that inner journey for her, particularly in the second act. I mean, there's a lot of things about her story that I don't want to give away that complicate.
No, that we'll save those for the talk back right after the reading.
She's not as simple as we think she is to begin with.
I love that. Mystery, intrigue, comedy. We love it.
Yeah.
Now, for everyone watching, if you have any questions for Vincent, please put them in the chat. We'll ask them in just a few minutes. But for everyone watching, Vince and the rest of the cast is currently in rehearsal for The Wheel Woman. Vincent, how have rehearsals been going so far? Any interesting discoveries that you've been making while you hear the actors rehearse?
Well, it's going great. Got so much talent in the room. I wish I could put them all in the same room, but my understanding is that they're all around the country. I've got a fantastic director, fantastic dramaturg. We are discovering that the structure and the pace of this are working. You know, a story that's sort of episodic, where you're going around the world and you're meeting new people every scene, it could really easily just turn into sort of a series of events, but it's not. It's working. It's working in a really interesting way. And a lot of that is the acting. It's just the great acting. The discoveries.
How has the switch to a virtual? I mean, it changes things. It does, as we've seen from the last 5 shows, the 5 plays that we've done. It kind of changes the world. Has anything kind of popped out in a real cool way yet?
So, as you can imagine, there's a lot of comic entrances and exits. There's a lot of boom, boom, you're somebody new. We're frantically retyping the names of our characters once in a while on our screen, although I think our stage manager will ultimately do that. It's been very fun. It's been very funny and to see that. And I think they're going to be fun. I would think this is not the kind of a play that would do well virtually, but it's absolutely working. And I think there's something funny about seeing them make those changes right on camera. It's really exciting.
Their name changes in the bottom corner so quickly. I love to hear it. So obviously this is a new play festival, so it means that your script is still in development. What are you hoping to get out of this week while you're in rehearsals and making adjustment to your work?
We have we've cleaned up some things that seem minor, but they're actually not minor. We've cleaned up which actor needs to go where in a given scene, because there's this choral nature to the play that's actually very important. Like, I want to hear every voice. I don't want to leave anybody out. I want to make sure that in a group scene, everything is balanced. And it's interesting. That doesn't sound like something you'd be doing in the writing process, but for this particular play, it's been really important. Also, I talked earlier about Annie's emotional arc, really mapping out where the comedy turns to something darker and where it comes back. And that we understand that we're both in the world, in this adventure going from France to India to China to San Francisco, but we're also inside her. We're also in this in her journey, and I'm loving that process, and I think we're finding it.
That sounds like the key word here, journey, where we're journeying both in character and literally where we're journeying to. We have a question from Douglas. Thank you, Douglas. Do you find any trends in your work? What are the characteristics of a Vincent Delaney play? Do you tend to like a particular type of subject or structure? Very good question. Thank you so much, Douglas.
That is a great question. Wow, it's kind of different every time. I do love to work from history. The play that was done at PlayFest is called The Art of Bad Men, and it's set in World War II. It is about a group of German prisoners of war who are on a prison camp in Minnesota, and they're staging a Molière comedy, which is all true. This actually happened. I have the pictures to prove it. So often I'll find an historical vignette that's just so compelling. Like this young woman from Boston who got on a bike and didn't stop till she traveled the world. I mean, that's just so amazing. So I guess that is one thing for me. I'm also really into sort of intense family plays, like plays that feature characters that have issues that can't really be resolved, and often within the family. I'm really compelled by that. It just depends.
We have another question from Lexi. What was it like researching Annie? Is there a lot of information about her life?
Oh, it's so amazing. I'm not sure I can even show you. Like, there's so much great literature out there about her. And if you look at the photographs,
You had the book ready to go too.
Yeah. It's just amazing just to see visually the possibilities of that adventure. I spent, and I'm still spending, it was 6 months at first of just loving the story and the adventure and the comedy and the hilarity. And in this case, there are some very preposterous things in the play that are historical, that did happen. I'll give you one that's not, I don't think it's a big spoiler. She set off from Boston and went west all the way to Chicago, and then realized that she was going so slowly that she wasn't going to make it over the Rockies. So she turned around, got a different bicycle, and went all the way back to New York, and then went east. And she went east all the way around the world and came back to Chicago. It's like, that alone is just so amazing. But it's true. It actually happened.
Wow. Sounds like there's a lot of information about her. What from Douglas again, what are your biggest influences as a playwright? Do you have any influences that are other playwrights that you're influenced by? But what in general is your influence?
Well, other playwrights, I would say Susan Laurie Parks, Sam Shepard. I'm thinking particularly of Top Dog, Underdog, or True West. I love, and I said this already, those intense, it's funny, this is nothing like The Wheelwoman, but like small cast, intense, two-hander, three-hander, where you just can't solve the problem. And like Fences, August Wilson, you just can't solve that problem. And I'm just really, that just really gets me going.
Excellent. From Orlando Shakes themselves, what has been the biggest change or development that you've made in the script since you began working on it?
Discovering that, how can I say this? Some of the play, for it to be interesting, for it to be compelling, we have to meet characters more than once. And the early draft of the play, she sets off and every scene it's somebody new until she gets home to her husband, and that's fine, but it's not that dramatically compelling. So I found a window, and I'm not the first to do this, but I found a window of making some of the play happen in her fantasy, so that we have recurring characters that are kind of visionary, kind of a vision, but also kind of real. And the obvious model is On the Verge, Eric Overmyer back from the 80s, the 3 time traveling Victorian women, which is brilliant. And it's kind of taken from that, the idea that we are carrying these conversations with us. And I think the idea, Annie's alone on this bicycle for 40 hours and she doesn't see a soul. Of course there's someone with her. Of course there's a confidant or a ghost of someone who's there with her, because otherwise, how could she do it? How could you do that?
Right. Well, now I got to get my ticket to see it.
Yeah, please do.
Well, that's the last question that we have. So, Vincent, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure hearing a little bit about the Wheelwoman. Are you going right back to rehearsal after this?
Well, I think I'm due, so I think I better. Yeah.
You got to get back. Well, and the biggest and most important thing to realize this week is that while most of our PlayFest plays have happened on Saturday, the Wheel Woman is this Friday, October 30th. That's all the time for questions we have. So thank you so much, Vincent. Don't forget to purchase your tickets for the Wheel Woman this Friday, October 30th at 7:30 p.m. It has made the change to Friday, October 30th. I want to reiterate that over and over again. Tickets starting at $10 can be purchased at orlandoshakes.org. And you can join us next Wednesday right here on the Orlando Shakes Facebook page for the next and last installment of the Meet the Playwright, when we speak to Deneen Reynolds-Knotts with her play, Flashes and Floaters. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Nick Bublitz. We'll see you soon.